Hi, welcome to Sticky Thoughts podcast. Here we talk about the thoughts that stuck to us. We get curious, we get honest, and we try not to spiral, but no promises. We are your hosts. This is Kajal Singh.
And I am Smriti Kamath. And on this podcast, we are showing up as psychologists, but we are mainly showing up as people who are also psychologists.
Right.
So today's discussion is going to be around the Netflix show Adolescence.
So it's a series about a 13-year-old boy named Jamie Miller who's arrested for a fatal stabbing of his classmate Katie. Most of the series attempts to explore why he did it.
There are going to be spoilers in this episode, so in case you haven't watched it and you feel like you want to pause and maybe come back when you have, then feel free to do so.
Yeah. So, Smriti, how about you start with telling your experience of watching Adolescence?
I think I got to watching the show a little bit late. I mean, I think the show had already been around for a couple weeks when I got to it, so I was hearing a lot about it, seeing posts about it and everything. And I think I was trying to avoid exactly knowing what it was about, but I mean, although, what you mentioned as the summary is part of what I understood. But I was trying to not learn more about it, just that I just knew that there's a boy who ended up stabbing a girl 7 times. So I went into the show knowing that. I feel like what really stood out to me was that how ordinary everything was. Like, I feel like I did not see anything extreme. Like, I might have been expecting, or, something that maybe I presumed, like going into it, because of course, this show is not a whodunit, it's a whodunit. So I knew who did it, but I think I was really trying to understand why. And I feel like usually in media and other shows or stuff, I feel like there's always this really big bad thing that happened that tries to, that you use to kind of explain what the person did. And you always kind of have a direct reason to it, almost. And I think here there were things, but it felt unsettling because nothing was quote unquote too bad. So I think the most of the show, I think I was just like really alert, being like, okay, what's gonna happen? What are we gonna find out? What is gonna be revealed that is gonna make all of this make sense? Because how does somebody just do something like this out of nowhere? Which is, I think, the most uncomfortable part of watching adolescence. So yeah, that was kind of my experience. That was the main part of my experience. Otherwise, I really like the cinematography.
I think I agree with you absolutely when you say that there wasn't anything extraordinary in the show. I mean, the show was extraordinarily made for sure, but we could not find anything satisfactory so as to why he did it. You know, he wasn't abused or beaten up as a kid. There was bullying.
It did not seem like the kind of bullying that would make you feel like you understand why what happened.
Yeah,
Like that it's not equal. Like what
yeah,
the reaction is not
yeah.
appropriate to what happened.
Everybody really wanted to, find something satisfactory. Everyone, even the policemen, the investigators, the therapist, everyone in the show were trying to find something that balances this outrage because it's not it's not normal to kill someone. It's not normal for a 13-year-old boy to kill someone of the same age, a girl, and then not just in one shot, but stabbing 7 times.
Of course, it is evident that it's a crime of passion, which is not, it's not premeditated. He did not think about this. He probably did not know that he was gonna do it.
Yeah.
I feel like I also found really confusing that I mean, I don't think we're gonna explore that here, but I feel like I just want to put it out that I feel like I never understood why till the end he kept insisting that he hasn't done it. I feel like even that I was looking for explanations on why this is happening. And I feel like with the show, most of my questions remained unanswered, but I feel like that is also how it was, in a sense, realistic, where it's not the perfect plot where everything has some justification and you get every answer you're looking for. But I never understood why he kept saying that he hasn't done it, even after his dad watches it right in front of him, then to the psychologist who he knows probably. And so I feel like that is also an answer that I never got. And I think a lot of questions remain unanswered in the show. But yeah, so I am also curious about how was your experience watching the show, also, adding context that you have experience working with similar population.
Yeah. I have been working with the children under the juvenile system, which includes children in conflict with law. However, I want to take up your point when you said that why he kept saying he hadn't done it. We all experienced how unsettling, nerve-wracking this action was. It was very difficult until they showed that CCTV footage of the boy committing the crime. I was also sort of rooting for the boy. I was also, and even after they showed the video, I think I was trying to find ways to make it make sense. It's difficult to say ki, oh, I was just very mad and I lost it and I killed her. It's very difficult to live with that. Maybe he actually believes he hasn't done it. None of us actually believe that we're doing something wrong, that we're wrong, that we are bad. We can't live with believing that we are bad people. We always have
Hmm.
so we reason with ourselves, even if that reason does not make any sense to the world outside. It has to make sense just to us for us to keep going on. I
I
think
feel like what's also coming up for me when you said that is it was not an intentional crime where he planned it or something. I feel
right.
like I still don't have an answer to why he took a knife in the first place. But it's definitely does not seem like something he intended to do.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to scare her or something, which still does not make sense to me. But he did not intend to do that, what he did. But the rejection he received, and I
Mhm.
think put him in a really emotionally dysregulated state. I feel like with emotional dysregulation, I think that to some extent this happens to everybody when you are experiencing some intense emotions and you are not grounded and you are in that state. You might say things that you don't mean or do things that you regret later.
Mm.
And I feel like, especially with people who do not have the capacity to regulate their emotions, I feel like this can even be more intensified. And with Jamie, that is certainly the case. We're gonna get into the whole father thing. But yeah, I think that maybe because he was in such a dysregulated state and that is the state in which he did it, but then that's not something that he wanted to do, or it's an action that because when you're in a dysregulated state and you do something and then you kind of are in a regulated state later and you kind of feel like, who was that person? Because that was
Right.
not me. I didn't
Right.
mean to do that. I wouldn't do that.
Right.
So I'm also thinking if that was something like that, where especially because the act he committed was so difficult for probably for him to process, that he's saying that I didn't do it, but it's kind of like he can't relate to himself doing it because he can't rationally
Yeah.
express why he would do something like that,
Yeah.
is my best guess.
Yeah. Makes total
Hmm.
sense.
Okay, going back to how your experience was.
Yes. I want to say I am really grateful to the makers of Adolescence. I think they've been very sincere with the whole story, cinematography, narration. Is this very beautifully put? I get this question very often that why do you want to work with criminals or they don't deserve therapy or they don't deserve mental health interventions, or they are supposed to be isolated, or they are never going to get better, or some or things like that, it's very difficult to help people see beyond that act of crime or one act of passion that they've committed. But this show really helps us see beyond that act, you know. It helps us see different incidences, the whole story, the background. It also helps us, see Jamie as a person,
Hmm.
someone who doesn't like sports, someone who liked painting, someone who
Someone
makes,
who likes hot chocolate.
yeah, it's not easy to think about these things, which is completely understandable. But I think this series gives us that, uh, peephole into a person beyond that one act. I think the show also helps us break this wall between all the people and all the children who are under the juvenile system. I don't want to trivialize the consequences of their action. It's obviously heartbreaking. We saw that life was lost. I don't think the show also tried to trivialize
Yeah.
his action, but it was only about finding why he done it and then maybe prevent it later with other kids, with other people.
I feel like in not giving us a proper reason thing that really made this happen. I feel like if there would have been this one reason of sorts that everybody can, pile upon and be like, huh, this is why that happened. Like that would have, to some extent, not trivialized what happened, but then, I feel like that is how we all see it. I think it's a very difficult line to navigate. Even in this conversation, I think when we talk about Jamie, there's this discomfort that comes with talking about him. It's like this inner conflict between one side of me that knows that nobody just does something like this out of nowhere. Like,
Mm.
for example, if he had the proper parenting, if he had the proper resources, if there was not things working against him, then nobody would do something like this out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And to some extent, I also know that if, while it's easy for us to kind of sit and be like, yeah, this is so bizarre. How could somebody do something like that? If you were exactly in their place, if you were raised exactly the same way, if you maybe exactly went through the certain circumstances that he went through, even if it's just being emotionally dysregulated at perfectly the wrong time
right,
to do something like that,
right.
that we are all capable of something like that if we were in the same circumstances, which is a very uncomfortable thought to sit with.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's like the other side that is also really does not want to think like that because this was clearly a misogynistic crime. There is resistance that I feel when I think about this or try to figure out why Jamie did it. I want to understand why because the psychologist side of me and the person who does believe in change, and I know that if in different circumstances this would not have happened if he had things be better. On the other side, I feel also this resistance in doing that because should we really be looking at reasons, because at the end of the day he did it, he did it and that's bad. So it feels almost like by looking at reasons and trying to find justifications, it almost feels like we are trying to trivialize what happened with the victim. If I, for example, had to think about this from the standpoint of the victim, who in this case is literally dead, I would not want that. I would not want, or like if I was even related to the victim, I would not want that. I would not want for people to sit and think about the perpetrator like that. Ki, oh, yeah, he had a bad childhood. That is why he did it. I'm like, I don't care. Where is the justice?
mm,
But yeah, I feel like that's a very difficult line to navigate. But of course, if we look at it that way, is only when we would be able to make these changes and do things differently, either when it comes to other children and other people, or also the same people so that they do better in the future.
so you put it very well, Smriti. I think when we try to look at this whole thing from the perspective of Katie or Katie's parents and Katie's family, then it's very difficult to see the crime beyond what happened that night in
Hmm.
those few minutes. That's why I think this is absolutely my point of view, my opinion, that there's a reason we have a law in place, a judge, group of people in place to help us through this. If you hurt me, I would definitely, I mean, I know you would not hurt me, Smriti, but if you let's say punch me, I would want to punch you back. But if
Okay.
suppose we were siblings and we had a common parent, so if the mother comes in, she would probably separate us or talk
Hmm.
to us or sit us down. Is
Hmm.
that fair? Is that justice? But because I already got hit, is that fair? Is that justice? No. Or we don't know. But what that sitting down would do to us is that help us navigate this situation better, maybe next time we have a disagreement. So even the law, I would want to think it's not about punishment. It's not about, oh, because Jamie killed Katie, now Jamie also deserves to die. It's eye for an eye and the whole world becomes blind. How is that going to help other Jamies out there in the world and other Katies out there in the world? Maybe it's scary to think about, oh, if I commit a crime, then I would be, say, put behind the bars or I would be sentenced, etc. But Jamie did not go to Katie thinking or having planned a murder, right? He just did it. So most of the crimes happen this way. Most of the crimes are momentary, just that just happens in passion. Very few are planned out. So for the crimes that happen in the moment, maybe the thing has happened in the moment in those few minutes, but it was built up from years and years of inability to maybe process your feelings, process your emotions, regulate your emotions, maybe due to lack of support from parents who are supposed to be our primary support system, our friends, school, other adults, media also plays a huge role, as we saw. So it's all of those things together, which is very unsettling again. I mean,
Yeah.
you said earlier how the show did not give us one thing that led to this incident. I'm very grateful that it did not give us one thing, or or that it did not make us even hate Jamie. Or I particularly could not hate Jamie because I also knew him as this innocent kid. I also know him as this kid who was bullied, who really tried to make his father proud. So when the show does not give us ki, oh, this Jamie was a crazy person who just committed this crime, which would have been very easier for the audience than make sense with, make peace with, and then move on with their lives. But this show, I think, forces us to look at every little thing. It's not one thing. It's not just balancing out the amount of salt we put in a dish. It's not just one thing. It's also the chopping, the time of the day that we're quick cooking, the mood, the ingredients we're using, the heat, everything and every time. It's not just one thing that led to this. It's collection of everything. Would you like to bring parenting into this or explore the parenting part of adolescence? Smriti.
Yes, let's bring parenting into it. I feel like what really stood out to me about the parenting in adolescence was about how, again, ordinary it was. I think, like you said, that you were rooting for Jamie. I don't know. I think I was confused the whole of the first episode because, I mean, by the end, we find out that he did actually do it. And of course, like I said, I knew that he did it while moving. I mean, like while watching the show itself, because of everything I had seen around, I knew that he did it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to understand why and what.
Yeah.
And the way he kept insisting that he hasn't done it, I think that I was really like, okay, but we do know you did it. So what is going on here? So, okay. So when once I did find that out and that was sealed, I think I also had my eye on the parents from the starting, but I feel like my priority while watching the first episode was Jamie, and because of how he was reacting, I was kind of like, is there some confusion? Did he actually not do it?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
happened? Yeah, so I think that was confusing, and that is not when I was focusing on the parents that much. But I think after that, when we do see him do it, I feel like my whole focus shifted on his parents.
Hmm.
And I think I was also taking into account the school thing and everything, but I think mainly because no matter what is happening, I feel like we learn um, like the map of how we handle things, and everything is created by our parents, and how like that's the first thing that's how we learn most of our coping skills, so how we react to things. So I feel like my attention shifted to the parents really quick, and I feel like I was really just they were there under the microscope for me, like, okay, what are they gonna do, what are we gonna find out? And especially in episode 3, with how it went with the psychologist, every time his father would come up,
Yeah,
Jamie would get really defensive. I mean, even though he was saying good things about his father, but
yeah,
like all children, like nobody really wants to, out of the back, most people do not want to believe that their parents did anything wrong. Um, and they want to, believe good things about their parents, and
right.
they would, I think, inherently defend them. So I was also confused about, I was not taking what Jamie was saying at face value when
Hmm.
he was saying good things about his father, even. And, of course, we saw some things that he mentioned. Ki, okay, there were some things like the father looking away and everything, which even Jamie mentioned, but he was trying to mention that in not so much of a bad light, also. He was
Right.
still trying to paint a good picture of his father, but you could see all of that defensiveness there. So I was like, what is his father really like?
Really.
So when in the fourth episode we were only tracking their family, I feel like that is when I was really kind of like, okay, what are we gonna find out? What is going to happen that is going to make all of this make sense finally? Like, what is the father going to do now? What kind of a man is he? I also had my eye on the other family members, but especially his father. And because of how he got defensive in the third episode about his father,
Hmm.
and as well as then every move he was making, I was kind of like almost ready to assume the worst was going to happen ahead. Like, for example, when in the fourth episode, he comes downstairs, it's his birthday, and he starts unbuttoning his wife's shirt, and she's saying no, and I feel like really drove me to the
God.
edge. I got really like on the edge, like, oh my God, what is gonna happen? What are we gonna see right now? Are things gonna go south? But then they don't.
Hmm.
And okay, okay, all right. He did take some time to take that rejection, or like not rejection, but like, to take that no in. He did not take it at first, but he took it. And then I feel like as the episode went on, I did see him reacting and being reactive, but I feel like I never got that sense of, oh yeah, see, this is exactly what caused it,
Hmm.
because his father is bad. I
Right.
feel like I never got that sense. And I feel like even at the end, about how the parents were processing things together and everything, it just
Very
felt really
human.
very human. Yeah,
Very
that I think that's the
very,
right
very
word.
human.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was not perfect by any means, but very, very human and very normal and in that range. So I feel like that is what really stood out to me and really made me feel really like unsettled about, okay, then what do we take away from the show? What it just happened? The killing just happened. We don't have anything then.
So the killing did not just happen, but it happened with all of these things happening together. The bullying, the school environment, isolation that comes with using social media, parenting also. So we see
Mm.
how the father talks about not doing well or the best as a father himself, and talking about how his own father was abusive while he did not ever raise hands on Jamie or anybody, or that he tried at least. I want to say he did do his best. However, if we want to talk about conscious and healthy parenting, that there is definitely scope for improvement, 100%. I think parenting obviously definitely plays a huge role in the person that you become. We cannot, as adults, blame everything on our parents, because there is also your own will, your own personality, your own self. But if we're talking about Jamie, who's only 13, even though there's nothing outrageously bad about the parenting of both the parents. However, I was also sort of very keenly looking at the father's behavior, his actions, and what is he gonna do. When we were discussing about this podcast, I also, my biased mind also made things up. Oh, he also said that, but we went back to the episode and it was not true. So that also happened. But something that was really significant for me in the show about Jamie's father was that he, even from the first episode itself, when the father learned about Jamie, his son, committing a crime of murder against another little girl, he was obviously upset and he reacted with, flinching and then looking away
Mhm.
from Jamie, which is very human again. You're in a very difficult position. It's your own son. So you know that you might also take the blame on yourself, a little bit at least as a parent. And so it's very difficult to deal with that situation. And he did look away, but after looking away for a couple seconds, he went back to him and hugged him, which was, I think, him trying to comfort the child, you know, also as a parent, because it's also a very difficult situation for Jamie. But I think the looking away sort of stayed with me from the first episode itself. Jamie also talks about him looking away during a football match that Jamie was not doing very well at. And Jamie interprets that as a kind gesture where he was hiding his sorry face from Jamie. And we also see that in the fourth episode when the father says, I could not look at him. I could not let him see my embarrassment because I was embarrassed because all the other fathers were laughing at Jamie being sidelined like that.
He did not
I,
say that he did not like he purposely looked away because he wanted to hide his embarrassment. Like Jamie
yeah,
thought that that is what he was trying to do, but the dad was disappointed. And
yeah,
even though even though Jamie was trying to justify it, I think my dad was doing it so that he does not see me feeling so that I don't see him feeling sorry for me.
yeah.
But Jamie could obviously, like, the baseline of that is
Mm.
that what Jamie is getting is, regardless of whether he's doing that intentionally to protect his feelings or not, his dad is disappointed.
Yeah. It's these little situations where you actually need that support, because it's not masculine to be not good at sports, right? You're supposed to be good at sports. At least one sport. The dad also took him to boxing, which also did not work. So you're supposed to be good at sports, and now he's not. So he feels different already, but he's also seeing his father, seeing him differently, or being embarrassed, or being disappointed. That, I think, pushes him away from the father, pushes him away from sharing his difficult emotions, sharing his confusion about things, or when he's going through something that he does not yet understand. It would be very difficult for Jamie to find someone to confide in, because he idealizes his father. He looks up to him, and he also sort of, identifies with him. He wants to be like the father, like cool,
Hmm.
good with girls, good at sports. He wants to be all of that, but he knows that he's not.
And he sees that as traits of masculinity that he's supposed to embody, that
Right.
he is not able to the extent that his own father is not able to look at him. Like, for example, if the same thing was happening, even though we can kind of see where the father was coming from, and he
Yeah.
was just feeling embarrassed and disappointed, to the
Yeah.
point that he could not look at his own son.
Yeah.
And but what a child would really need in that moment is for the parent to look at your mistake, see that, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I am messing up. My parent is looking at me, and maybe my parent is still connecting with me, and my parent is forgiving it. My parent is still encouraging
Right.
me. It's
Right.
not disappointed to the point that is completely. It's an act of detachment, like trying to detach from the
Right.
thing, like disconnection. You are not connecting with your child. So
Yeah, I agree with you so hard, Smriti, on this. The child wants to be seen.
yes, with their
Embarrassment.
mistake.
Yeah, with their mistake, because the child is also probably feeling embarrassed, and then they want to be seen,
Yeah.
and they want to be acknowledged and maybe held there.
Yeah, like I mean, even in this scenario, of course, it
Right.
does not necessarily have to be
No, no,
holding all
yeah,
the time, but
yeah,
the
that's
act of holding would be making that eye contact,
yeah,
seeing, and being like, oh, okay, too bad, but it's okay, you got this sort of a thing, like
yeah,
still being encouraging. But
yeah,
when that is not what he's receiving, and this is what the reaction is, it does affect you, because that is, like for him, for Jamie, this was like an act of masculinity that he could not do,
mm,
which his dad is already embarrassed by. And it's also important to look at why was the dad embarrassed in the first place? Because of his own ideals of masculinity. Otherwise, why would you look away? Why would you be embarrassed by your child not being able to perform well in a sport? And you can also see that the father is trying, because he also, in the scene where he's talking about this, he talks about how he took him to football. He was
yeah,
disappointed that he could not do well. He took him
yeah,
to boxing. That also didn't go well.
yeah,
But then you can see that he did shift his approach and his parenting style and let him color, because that is what Jamie liked, bought him a computer because that is what Jamie liked. So you can see that the
yeah,
dad was trying, and like he did not hit Jamie like his
mm,
father used to hit him.
hmm,
But then what I feel like, what I also want us to see is that the damage was done. And I feel like that is what a lot of us don't look at, or like a lot of people don't look at when when we are trying to be like, no, our parents did the best that they could. And like I think this is the biggest conflict that also stops people from maybe coming to therapy or really talking about their parents in therapy, because your parents could have done and probably would do the best that they could have, and that
yeah,
could still have an impact on you, because there are still some things that would be generationally passed down even if they did not carry on most of it. Like, for example, even if you have tried to do your healing, you are in therapy right now, and you did most of your work. When you have a kid, you would probably still end up passing on some of it to your kid, and that is normal and that is fine. And I feel like what I want us to see is that it's okay, it's there, and it's okay for us to look at it and acknowledge these mistakes. It does not have to be that we are villainizing the parents and
yeah.
okay, like they did so bad. But then it's okay to see that okay, they made mistakes even if it's unintentionally, while they were intending to do good.
Like how the child wanted to be seen, acknowledged, connected with. All of that comes from communication. And I don't think I heard anything around communication between Jamie and the father. After football, he takes him to boxing, then he sort of sees that he used to paint and now he's not painting anymore, but there was no communication.
Mm.
There was no
Yeah.
there wasn't a conversation between them ki, oh, what do you really like? What do you really
Yeah.
do? Or does it bother you that you're not good at sports? Do you want to be good at sports, etc.? A
Mm.
conversation around it, I think, might have really helped.
Yes, exactly. That is very true. We also see the shame and that he has kind of got from his father, from how he reacts to the psychologist,
Hmm.
and topics around it, because you can see that he really wants to be validated on, that he is good enough, that his dad is not ashamed. And at one point where he's like, Yeah, my dad looks away because he was trying to not feel sorry. And then I think the psychologist said something like, okay, then how does that make you feel or something? And then Jamie's like, you're supposed to tell me he's not ashamed of me. So it's that I think he it has internalized for him so bad. And one more thing that came up with the psychologist is because Jamie hasn't had a lot of female friends or anything like that. So the only dynamic of how he sees women and everything has been um, mainly his the relationship between his parents. And I think it's kind of visible that I don't think his mother is or was, however we need to refer to it, to a show, um, a passive woman as such, but in the dynamic between that she had with her husband, she kind of had to assume that passive role
Right,
because of her husband's emotional reactivity. Like,
right,
it's not like she did not have an opinion or anything like that. She did, but she would still have to kind of come to the side or, like, come, not really say things because, okay, if I say this at this time, then he would react. And I feel like even though his father was not trying to be this dominating figure or like not intentionally trying to do that, but he kind of was in that relationship. And which is probably what Jamie saw growing up, which is probably why I think what comes up in how he feels in the relationship between him and the psychologist, where when I feel like he's getting dysregulated every time he sees that the woman has power in this equation and she's able to signal the guard away who is a man, and that she has power over him, that she is not validating him
hmm,
also comes up, which I think overall is also how that he can't take rejection. We also saw how he's reacting to the rejection in the room itself with the
right,
psychologist.
right, right. And that she also does not, try to pacify him
Mm,
when he
yeah.
when he was getting agitated, and when he was feeling low, when talking about his father and the embarrassment, etc. When she did not try to pacify or try to regulate his emotions for him, that was also uncomfortable for Jamie.
Yeah, and to which he reacted very strongly. Like, why aren't you
Yeah,
telling me this? Why,
yeah.
and then like to the point that he had to physically get up and intimidate her in a way to quote unquote, I think, put her in her place in his head. Ki, okay, yeah, you think you have power to send the guard away. Look at you, you're scared of me, a 13-year-old.
Hmm.
So he was really trying to get that reaction out to make things make sense for him. And you can also see how much back and forth there is in that third episode itself, because he's doing things and he's feeling bad about it because he's getting dysregulated because of how it's making him feel about, because that is what his world has been. That is how he expects the world to be. So when it's not like that, he's getting these intense emotions. Like, okay, I don't have power here. He's reacting, but then he's feeling bad about the fact that he reacted and he's going back and forth really quickly. And of course, the psychologist is kind of facilitating these reactions because she is leaving him with that discomfort to see how he reacts. That is the point of it. But we see how emotional reactivity it is, which he has totally picked up from his father. So that is there, because we also see the father being emotionally reactive in a lot of instances. He is not, I mean, of course, being somebody who was physically abused growing up, and that he probably not only did he not get that emotional support from his parents, probably, at least not his father, where he's communicating his feelings and everything, but on top of that, he was also physically abused. So we are seeing that he is also not capable of regulating his emotions. So it wasn't something that he could pass down to Jamie either.
Yeah, and when towards the end we see he just really wanted to be liked by the therapist, just how he wanted to be liked by his parents, by his father, by his friends,
Mm.
by Katie. He just wanted to be liked. We all want to be liked.
Yeah, and
Very strong.
especially when you again put together how his father was very visibly disappointed of him over and over again, you're
Uh,
just not getting a signal that he is liked.
we're social beings. We really want to be liked. Uh, yeah. So
Hmm.
I think trying to summarize it, maybe he did have set of parents and comfortable household and everything, a good school, etc. He still did not feel that he had a trusted adult that he could confide his real emotions in.
Especially when he's getting bullied and everything.
Yeah, yeah, because nobody had any idea. The parents did not
Hmm.
have any idea about what was going on. The sister did not have any idea. Um, so yeah, so that is one thing. Then his
And
initial,
even the bullying was about not being masculine enough, which how can he go to his father about that
yeah,
when his father is already disappointed at him about not being masculine enough?
seriously, yes. That was very on point. And when you do not have anyone to help guide, processing of your emotions, understanding your emotions, then what do you do with it? You're just left with confusion. You're left with hurt, anger, disappointment again with yourself that
Hmm.
you're feeling these feelings. So it's a very difficult position that you've found yourself in. And
And shame.
and shame, for sure, shame.
Like being seen does not have to mean that they are agreeing with you or putting you on a pedestal.
Yeah,
They can
yes.
still hold space for your
Space for
emotions,
you.
but you can,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Right. And while still holding their own opinions.
ground, yeah.
Yeah, I think these were a few things that stood out for me, and these things can definitely be worked upon. A lot of it can be worked upon just through communication. Oof, clear
Yeah.
communication with words, with the touch. Um,
Yes.
oof,
With eye contact.
with eye
Eye contact,
contact. With just eye contact, with just looking, like that. Keep,
just not looking away.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we are here at the end of the podcast episode, this episode. Kajal, what was the stickiest thought for you from this episode?
Oof. I think the stickiest thought for me was when you said that the bully, I mean, when you acknowledged, of course, it's out there, but when you acknowledged that the bullying was around Jamie's masculinity, and then his very vulnerable point being masculinity with his immediate adult or solicitor or the support, the main adult, whatever the term was in the
The
show.
trusted adult?
A trusted adult, maybe, yeah.
I
So,
don't
so
remember.
that was the point of, vulnerability with his own father, and so he could not talk about it. That is what stuck with me. It's beautiful, it's heartbreaking, it's eye-opening, but also very ordinary. What about you, Smriti?
I feel like for me, the stickiest thought was about the fact that it didn't take a very big parenting mistake for this to happen. And it's these very seemingly small things that I think each one of us can think of. Of course, not each one of these has to lead to a crime. And I don't think each one of these needs to lead to a crime for us to finally acknowledge that, okay, yeah, there's something that needs to be worked on here. I feel like this is an extreme example for us to maybe look into it a
Right.
little bit. And but I feel like what it highlights is even these small things that parents can do and what can happen between the parent-child dynamics can have such a big impact and can stay with somebody for life and be something that is bringing them shame, guilt, disappointment at themselves, low self esteem. So I feel like that is the stickiest thought for me about how we need to be mindful of these really small things. And just, I think the first step is just to acknowledge that there are things to work on instead of accepting our parents for the way they are, because of course they are trying their best, but at the same time also looking beyond that and knowing that looking beyond that does not mean that you are disrespecting them or questioning their, intention or something. So the importance of having those two spaces where you are being respectful to your parents, and um, of course, I mean, we are here talking about parents who did try their best. I'm not
Yeah.
not including parents who did not try their best and ended up messing things up. But I am talking about parents who were maybe intentional and were trying their best, and the importance of each one of us to see that and appreciate that, have respect for that, but at the same time also seek, okay, where might I have been affected, and that it's okay for me to work on it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay, so we are at the end of the episode. People listening can share their stickiest thought from the episode or from the series. You can send it to us in our DMs, on our email, or if you're watching this on YouTube, then do leave a comment.
Yeah, we would love to hear. And if you feel like you have something to say about anything you mentioned, carry forward the conversation. We would be really happy to hear and what you have to add. And yes, thank you so much for listening. And we hope you have a really good day ahead.